Greeting, friends. It's so great to be with you today. It's June 12th, 2021. It's first day of 9 days of Wellness Works, Bauman Wellness Week. And this program is called Wellness Works. And it's the idea that how do we make it work for ourselves and everyone else? Because that's the vision we're holding. That's the vision we're sharing with people to really overcome all the corruption that's around us. It's a delight that my friend and colleague, Donnie Yance, is sitting in with us today. And, I think I'll just let Donnie say hi now before I go to slide screen so we can see each other and, make acquaintance. Take it away, Donnie.
Thank
Tell us
you,
a little
Ed.
bit about yourself, your journey. We're not in a rush. We just want to really savor each bite.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I feel honored and blessed to be with you. And I've, throughout the decades, have really appreciated everything that you've done to both bring wellness to each and every one, and you continue. Your spirit is so alive and vital, and your schools have been amazing. I think it's the only place you can really go to learn how to really become a chef, a gourmet chef. That's in right. Holistic healing. So food in Mederi medicine, there are 5 toolboxes we use, and the soul of the medicine is botanical medicine, dietary medicine, lifestyle medicine, and nutritional medicine, and then pharmaceutical and modern medicine fits in to that already beautiful holistic approach. And we never, the beauty is in the synergism, how all those things converge and work together. So whole systems are unpredicted by any one of their parts working alone without the other. So I think that this concept of how the importance of what food is and what kind of food you eat, why you eat, when you eat, how you eat, is all really an important piece to our wellness. And I also love the concept of a we concept and not an I concept.
Absolutely.
That very much resonates with me. And you asked me just like a week ago to join you, so I'll just say this is like I'm always so busy with my life, but this is the busiest time. I said, if I can get through the next month, it will be a miracle. And so thank God I eat well, I sleep well, I'm really good. I'm the best, most compliant patient you'll ever meet. I don't miss a beat with my own protocol because I demand a lot of myself. And
sure.
So I'm doing all kinds of webinars, lectures, the work in Mederi. I'm very busy musically right now as well, with lots of gigs and just holding so much inside here. But we're building our academy. So the biggest news I could say is that after all these years, Mederi is next year going to be launching its 2-year academy at some point. So I'm building in 18 hours of what I call preclinical training to have all the different practitioners that come to train to have a commonality, a platform that they all can begin relating to each other and speaking to each other and building terminology that might be otherwise new to people. And so that everybody has a starting point. So it's founding principles in Mederi medicine. So you can't really have a system of medicine unless you have principles that guide you through that. And so that's what I've been doing. And so this next weekend, I'm doing an introductory to botanical medicine, for example, part 1 and part 2. So that's super exciting. And then as a foundation, we're going to be doing a clinical trial on dogs with lymphoma. So it's kind of exciting to do a trial with dogs because we don't have all these hospital IRBs that just create so many stumbling blocks to be able to actually validate how whole systems medicine works. Never mind, adaptive or personalized medicine. So anyway, I'm also a musician, a jazz musician, a bass player, and I just put out 6 months ago a CD of all my own music, which is called Heaven Awaits, and you can listen to any of the tracks on any of the major listening entities, whether it be Spotify or iTunes, and all the proceeds go to benefit the foundation, every penny. So anyway, that's a quick little synopsis.
That's good. Wonderful. Thank you, friends. I'm going to share a screen now. Let's see how we do with that. You see it?
You do. I do.
All right. So you can mute yourself for a little bit. I do like conversation, though. I don't like just talking at a screen, really. And we'll go back and forth with, I'll share some of my slides. I'll ask Donnie for comments, or Donnie, you just jump in with the baseline when you've got one, or solo when you're ready, okay? But I'm careful with my words. I'm saying wellness works, and that's our hypothesis. And if it is to work, we need to learn practices to enhance wellness for one and all. So I think that's pretty important. It's not just thought. It's not a single activity. It's a whole way of being. So let's take a look at that. So here's me. Dr. B is the handle I've been enjoying lately. And I've been working this game for 50 years. And I've had the vision that we're gonna transform society. And that's my purpose in life. And it'll be my purpose until I'm in the next world. And I'll continue to lead that purpose, because I wanna bring really, the divine on earth. And I don't want to see our earth perish. And I don't want to see our people perish. So I started a college, 89, founded Bauman Wellness, which is community education rather than professional. And I'm a lifelong wellness advocate. So this is not just nutrition, but always all aspects of wellness. And I enjoy being a mentor at this point in my life. It's really lovely to have a team of Bauman Wellness moderators and facilitators and community members, and to be supportive to them. It's really, how can I help them and how can I help you? And then a community builder. And we're all in different, groups, but the community is really a place of home. It's a tribe. It's safety, it's love, it's protection, it's nourishment, it's empathy, compassion, understanding, tolerance, all these good things. And I want to welcome, people from all over to be part of it. And it's been quite a joy having that intention and watching it manifest. So this fellow, how about him? I think he gave us some explanation. But I want to say Mederi Center is a nonprofit, and they're grateful for donations, because, Donnie works more than 5 people in one day, in 1 week. He works so much, it's insane. But I asked Donnie to write a preface for a spice book I did, and Jennifer said, "Well, I don't know. He's so busy. He's got a conference. He's got a paper. He's got everything." And Donnie said, "Yeah, I can do it." And then he did it, and it was great. And I appreciate that. So Donnie shows up, I show up, you show up, we show up. And showing up is really, how we live. So blessings from my man. Learning objectives. Well, I want to expand the definition of wellness. And I think those who've been on these calls today realize it's more than personal wellness. And then we'll discuss the roots of unwellness. And I've put a few ideas down, and we'll talk about that. We could talk for weeks on that with Donnie. He's a clinical practitioner. And then a wellness practice model. So a model is very helpful. Donnie has the Mederi model. It's got 5 components. I have Eating for Health that has 5 components. Wellness practice model, which is one I crafted, has 5 components. So 5 seems to be a good number. You can hold your hand and count the fingers. And then I guess the takeaway, which we'll discuss together, and I need your thoughts and feelings and commitments, is how do we enhance personal and community and environmental wellness? So that's the deal. We'll stay together for an hour, maybe hour and a half, however it rolls. So life is kind of riding a bicycle here. And we're on one of those bicycles. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. So we can't get stuck. We can't just give up. And again, wellness for everyone is we can all ride on a path to well-being. So I believe that this is important for us to get over this sense of entitlement, and some people can afford it and some people can't. It's up to us to bring it to people, to have it be free and accessible and learnable, teachable, and hopefully before people are in late stage illness. So I think most people now are suffering. It's hard not to because there's so much around us. But we can give people practice, and practice is really empowering to people. So we'll discuss some of that. These are my words. I like to coin phrases. And wellness is a state of resilience, vitality, and joy. It doesn't say perfect health, doesn't say, lots of money, but it is resilience, vitality, and joy. And we can enjoy that in the moment right here. We can be well together and feel resilient and vital and joyful because we're blessed to be together. And then unity in the community is the goal, where justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion is practiced. So social unwellness is a root of emotional unwellness, physical unwellness, and then it leads to violence and exploitation. So we're part of the big picture here. Wellness, to me, is a pivot towards building community in a durable and sustainable way. Don, do you have any other comments to drop on personal and community wellness?
Sure. Well, just like you, I like to define things.
Yes,
so
I know.
So I always just let's start with defining wellness. And so I have a definition that I'll share. So wellness can be defined rather abstractly as intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical vitality engaging in attitudes and behaviors that enhance the quality of life. True wellness, however, is not merely a condition of the individual, but is interwoven and dependent upon the wellness of one's family, community, and the surrounding environment. To be truly well, we must freely give love, receive love, feel a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. So
yes, that's great.
And then I'll add, the word, I always like to let people know the word health is rooted in an ancient word called how. So, and the root word how is not only the root word for health, but it's also the root word for whole, and it's also the root word for holy. So I always tell people to be healthy means to be whole and holy.
That's great. Absolutely. So here's a concept that's really been well stated lately because we've been under so much duress. And wellness is gaining strength from managing unwanted change. Now let's think about that. Let's take stock. Think of the many, many things that have happened to you in the past year, 2, 3, 5, where you've been hit with difficulties, damage, loss, trauma, pandemic. Okay, everybody talks about the pandemic, but things were not good before the pandemic. But here we are, we're here. And we've really accelerated our capacity to adapt and support one another. When there's difficulty, people show up in unprecedented ways. And their true noble spirit is what we evidence. So that's great. Resilience, and I want us to all kind of claim our inner resilience here. It's vital to recovery because we have been wounded, we have been dinged up, and also to longevity. Resilience, strength. Policies, programs, and practices. So it's not just a personal thing. We need policies and programs. Programs are learning cycles, things that we're doing here. It's the program, and practices, things we do every day that promote resilience, have long-term positive effect on longevity. And that was stated in a Gerontology magazine, 2010. So the pivot from vulnerability to wellness is what we're looking to for individuals, people at work, because many people spend time at work. Now they work at home often, but still it's got to involve the economy. It's got to involve the way people spend their time. And certainly in institutions, we had, people from the city of Berkeley who were in on our meetings earlier in the day, and they're very, this makes sense to them. is that we have to build resilience amongst people in places, in companies, and we also need policy support, because right now health and wellness gets a nickel out of every $100 that's spent. And of course, that's ridiculous. So, any comment on resilience, Donnie?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add some less than obvious components to resiliency. So one is a concept of hormesis.
Oh, yeah.
So hormesis builds resiliency if we're healthy to begin with. And so part of what makes us healthy is our adaptation to the environment that we live in. And so small amounts of exposure to various stressors activate adaptation and build our resiliency, where too much of those stressors increase demands on our body, and then our body begins to crumble and break down, and disease sets in, dis-ease sets in. So there's this dynamic range of healthy stability that has a lot to do with harmonization. Like, you brought up the pandemic. So again, my philosophy is, how do we learn to be harmonious with our environment, make our environment healthy as a whole, but also learn to make peace with our environment, rather than think that we need to be in a bubble and that viruses and bacteria and various other toxins are necessarily all bad. Things only become bad when they're in a disharmonic state. And again, part of building resiliency is one of the 4 life requirements to resiliency are energy, adaptation, protection, and reproduction.
Yes.
So those are considered the 4 life requirements. And and a big part of my philosophy and the Mederi philosophy is to build the root system of health, to strengthen people by building robustness, to aid in the body's ability to auto-regulate, because our bodies regulate on its own. The immune system is hyper-regulatory, and then help our bodies organize better. Not necessarily predict. We believe that we have a life force. We believe that there's breath. We're breathed into us at birth, this beautiful sense of energy that all living entities have. And if cooperated with and supported correctly, does what's right for us, understands us. Our own intuitive health wants us to be healthy. And symptom presentation, so what we present as symptoms, often needs to be separated. When is a symptom a reaction or response of the vitality of the body to bring health, and when is that symptom actually part of the disease? You always have to understand symptom presentation. Fever, for example, we get sick, we get bacterial infection, our fevers go way up. What's the first thing that conventional medicine wants to do is suppress the fever. Now, there is a range that your fever can be in. There's things to do to modulate it, control it, reduce it. But to overtly just say you have a fever and treat the fever and not understand that the fever is part of an immune response to initially eradicate or to deal with the pathogen is, again, not understanding symptoms. So all of these things build resiliency. And so we want to understand it's a very different approach to health than we're broken. Here's the way we need to be fixed. We have no power to fix ourselves. We need some entity to come in, take over, and then that will fix our brokenness.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So we've heard with the pandemic that people with comorbidities are more vulnerable and have higher mortality rates and so forth. And so when you look at the conditions on the right, toxicity is unprecedented, and it continues to accumulate in the environment, in the water, in the food, in our bodies, in our tissues. And one of the consequences, among other, is dysbiosis, which is ecology in our gut, in our whole microbiome, which is even beyond the gut. And our entire internal ecology has been really dysregulated and disturbed, which is triggering quite a bit of inflammation. So we hear all the time, inflammation we can only lower inflammation, we'll be fine, but we have to lower toxicity and address dysbiosis for inflammation to recede naturally. And then this leads to your big chronic health disorders, which are works in progress for most people, whether it's cardiovascular, cancer, immunity, so much childhood illness. It's heartbreaking to see how children are ill and suffering and medical dependent, pharmaceutically dependent. And these other conditions, autism, attention deficit, mental illness, substance abuse, which are people coping. It's self-medication. People are using anything they can find to numb themselves, to lower their pain and sensitivity. And then MRSA, which is actually a resistance to microbes because of the overuse of antibiotics and other strong medicines, and metabolic disorders and lung disease and neurodegeneration. So all of these conditions are really, common, and they're advancing at a much earlier age. They're progressing. In normal conventional medicine, there's no deep look at root cause. There's no deep look at weak systems. There's no deep look at natural restorative practices. So clearly, it's hard to be resilient if you're dealing with several of these, because it's not that people have a single condition. There's many, many things going on in many levels. So do you want to comment a bit on this, Donnie?
Sure. I think that the real outstanding correlating risk factor is morbidly obesity. So that is the big commonality. So when we look at some of the ethnic groups, whether it be African Americans or Hispanics or Native Americans, that they, people keep bringing up their background as a cause, but really that group of people are more subject to the ills of our poor diet and lifestyle. Therefore, their health is suffering more. And because of that state, they're already in a pro-inflammatory state. So part of that state is, so inflammation is important for overcoming viruses and bacteria. And so there's a dynamic range of healthy stability that everything needs to be in. But it's always in flux. You mentioned movement before. Health has to involve movement. It has to involve everything that can be adaptive, and components of the innate immune system go up, which is pro-inflammatory. That's an initial response to COVID. But then the adaptive immune system clicks on and it regulates and again brings everything back into balance while we form memory cells and various antibodies to then basically totally eradicate the virus, or at least put it into a place of dormition or sleep. So having our bodies already be pro-inflammatory puts us already at a negative. And so now when we add inflammation to inflammation, we're potentially predisposed to problems occurring. So I think the first order, if COVID hasn't taught us anything, is that, and it's not really being mentioned, is that we need to be healthier. Healthy people are much better situated, and it's not an age thing. They keep bringing up age. It's only because older people and elderly people are frail and weak and have poor health. But there's a massive amount of centenarians, and the oldest person on the planet actually got over COVID relatively easy at 114 years old. So there's this concept that with aging, our society is becoming frail and weak. And we don't understand, like you brought up resiliency. So resiliency is part of vitality. You can be vital and resilient even as you get older. You do have to work harder at it, but we don't have to just succumb to this idea that we're going to be frail and weak and therefore susceptible to everything that comes around. So building resiliency, building vitality is an ongoing thing. That with aging, if we can keep that root system strong, because like I said it's a root system,
Yes.
our root system to our health, then we can live very, very well even in our later years.
Yeah. So these are names. These are, conditions. This is what's going on under the hood. So just take a few seconds to grok this picture. On the top, I've identified it as a toxic stress inflammatory cycle. And as Donnie said, inflammation is a healing response to bring the blood to a damaged tissue area and clear the waste. If it becomes excessive, then it becomes damaging to the tissue. So we see this whole cascade. It's almost a pinball effect of stress and an immune response leading to adrenal fatigue. Cortisol goes up, stomach digestion goes down. Adrenal arousal goes up, thyroid function goes down. Gut pH gets altered, then all of a sudden bacteria that typically wouldn't live in a healthy stomach or wouldn't live in a small intestine is overgrowing. And then digestion's compromised, absorption's compromised, putrefaction, debris, polyliposaccharides, which are metabolic byproducts, inflammation, leaky gut. So everyone says, oh, I've got a leaky gut. Well, it's common if there's chronic disorder of the microbiome. There's lots of immune activity. There's hypersecretion of bile that will inflame the gut, and undigested food and chemicals will pass into the bloodstream, which will stimulate, upregulate the immune system. And then we see these cytokines, and there's quite a few. This is just some of the more common ones that will upregulate to try to deal with foreign material or potential pathogens. There'll be different types of immune and allergic responses with immunoglobulin. Then there's going to be difficulty with infection and pain and trauma and sleep and emotional disorders, which goes around again. And this is contributing to just a state of exhaustion and of mood disorder, of depression. I'll talk about lose the blues, mental health issues tomorrow. But this is just a highlighted diagram. There's hundreds of other metabolic pathways that are activated, but these kinds of things are going on in your weak system, whether it's your skeletal system, your muscular system, your respiratory system, your gut, your brain, your liver, your thyroid is this chronic thing. And the impact of environmental toxins is not given nearly enough credit. So the greatest toxin that's coming to light now, and it's been known for well over 10 years, is glyphosate, which is a herbicide, fungicide that's used heavily on commercial crops, and it's in the soil for another 50 years. But it affects our water and our air, and population areas where there was a release of the COVID that also had 2.5 parts per million of glyphosate in the air, those people had severe consequences from the pandemic. And they told us, it's all about the virus, but it's the cumulative effect of the environment, of the stress, of disordered host. So for us, the host that's us, that's our bodies, that's our vehicle, is what we're looking to nourish so that it can have an adaptive immune and neurological response. Donnie, what do you got on this one?
A lot, I guess.
I know.
Well, I think when you look at if we're speaking of something like COVID and the inflammatory cytokines, I mean,
Yes.
the main one is actually called interleukin 1 beta NLRP3 inflammasome. So that's a big underneath driver of this inflammatory cascade,
Yes.
both involved in COVID, but also in cancer. It's a big driver. It's a driver of a disease like gout, for example, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Heart disease is very now believed to be, and IL-1 beta inflammasome will also upregulate IL-6, for example, for sure. But all these things, that's what I said. The beautiful thing is that plant medicines and dietary medicines, they have an ability to help us auto-regulate and not turn things off or shut things down. And solutions that are increasing our intake of plant medicines and even food, in particular, wild food. Mm-hmm. So when food is wild, when you eat plants like dandelion and nettles and wild berries that you harvest, those plants have developed an enormous amount of what's called secondary compounds. We, just by ingesting those plants, ingest those compounds, which aren't in farmed plants, for example, and those build our resiliency. They make us stronger. And so this concept that the plant takes on all this stress in the environment, because they have to deal with bacteria, viruses, fungi, all kinds of things. And so they develop very sophisticated ways to combat those things. Us, just by ingesting the plants, benefit from those secondary compounds. It's a whole new science called xenohormesis. So the stress that the plant takes on, we benefit from ingesting those plants. So just to kind of think of a way like relationship medicine. So I'm always thinking that the new term I like to say, I said medicine and health is relationship orientated. It's not, it's a lots of things going on, and everything in the body is networked together. And so when we look at plant medicines, plants that may nourish the nervous system also nourish the digestive system, and they help, what you put there, like a leaky gut syndrome, because the nervous system, particularly the vagal nerve, is so important and vital to how well we digest. That's why the vagal nerve is called rest and digest. And so this concept of nourishing what I call the endocrine system and the nervous system together is, again, just part of the foundation, what I feel like we all need to do to be healthy. And the using things that have what's called the most pleiotropic benefit, which means things that are multitaskers. And plants and food are multitaskers. There isn't a food that you take that's good for your heart that isn't good for inhibiting cancer. Yes. There isn't any. You can't name a food that hasn't shown to be beneficial at suppressing one chronic or neurological disease. It doesn't seem to matter. Those foods have this pleiotropic benefit because underneath what we call disease are commonalities. They're common traits that are there, that all of these foods and food compounds and herbs and botanical compounds have the ability to interact in a relationship way and activate our health, optimize our health at the molecular level, the cellular level, and the organ system level. So then again, we can analyze plants and food compounds affecting our molecules, being epigenetic modifiers, affecting our cells, our cell membranes, and affecting transporters from the cell membrane to the mitochondria, affecting transportation of energy to the cell membrane, and then affecting our organ systems, whether it be our lungs or our liver. And for COVID, I think I put out like 7 recipes, and one was like during Easter Passover time, which was the grated beet and horseradish. And I said, wow, people just instinctively eat these things that are amazingly good for you.
Spring tonics. Yeah, spring tonics.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Anyway, like I said, I could go on. So
no, this is great.
I'll cut it off there for now.
This is making a deep impression. So back to resilience. Is it just the food? Well, it starts with nature. And having vital plants and vital water and vital air and sunshine is that's where we belong. That's our habitat. Our habitat is not being trapped indoors with all the rest of it that goes with it, and being addicted to computers and screens. Sorry for this moment here. But yeah, nature is a big deal. And I moved to Sebastopol, where I live now. I've been here with my wife for 30 some years because I like the trees here. And Luther Burbank came from Massachusetts. He was a plant evolutionist and said Sebastopol's got the greatest soil on the planet. It's virtually the Garden of Eden. And he cultivated 300 species of fruits and vegetables and flowers right here in my backyard practically. So it's a privilege to live in a nice place where there is nature. And then, of course, we need vibrant food. And people go, oh, food is food. No, of course, it's not food. And even packaged food, organic food is still pretty weak. So for people to get this kind of boost that we need to stay strong and well, we need food that's grown in a biodynamic way, where there's vital soil and soil organisms and it's care. And the food's really well cared for and it's picked at the right moment. It's not overgrown. We could go on. Hydration. Water's a real problem. We have a water scarcity. We have water toxicity. We have a problem with overchlorination and fluorination and all the medications dumping into the water and all the chemical waste from industry dumping into the water. And it's really only due to the power of Mother Nature and the mycelium in the fungal population that we're still here. So again, we're having good talks on water Monday, 2 talks. And then movement, we had a good movement class this morning about the value of being physically active and being in joyful movement and mindfulness. These are practices I'll talk about as we move on in the show. And the ability to calm down and to rest, because that's becoming, again, much more difficult with all the overstimulation that people have. And a daily detox, which will come from herbs and spices and nutrients and saunas and sweats and rubs and cleanses and soaps and baths. And these are the things of natural medicine for the past 5,000 years. And these are practices. It's not just taking a pill, but it's actually being in an environment with plants, living plants, with abundant nutrients, phytonutrients, and organisms. And then not to de-emphasize, to really emphasize is art. Appreciating art, appreciating beauty, playing music and just playing. Those are tools for resilience. Most of the people I work with are completely numb and freaked out about the world situation. The people who tune into the Fox News, they're not seeing the same movie we're talking about here. So clearly people have to focus on inner life, on natural life, on creating community where people celebrate, people make music, have food, hang out, play ping pong, listen to good tunes, and so forth. And then cultivate peace and quiet. And that's a choice. It's like, turn off the TV. When people say, I don't have time, it's like, turn off the TV. You have plenty of time. Turn off the computer. Stop looking at your phone. And then spiritual qualities, and there's many, many, many. But certainly gratitude for life and commitment to life is really what takes us into prayer. And the prayer is not for spirit to come down and save us, for us to elevate into our higher space, to be able to serve more strongly. Donnie has such a service capability because he has such a deep reverence for life and for spirit and has a sense of purpose that inspires me, inspires everyone. But he hits most of these buttons and he works so much. But he understands what humans are how we live. You know, we're representing human beings and we're representing life forms on the planet. And all of these tools are within our grasp, and most of them are not expensive. It's just leveraging time. Donnie?
So you opened up with nature, speaking about
Yes.
nature. And so Henry David Thoreau said, "It is the marriage of the soul with nature that makes the intellect fruitful and gives birth to imagination." And then Albert Einstein says, "Imagination's more important than intellect." So, and then we talk about creating time and peace and quiet. What happens when we have a little peace and quiet? Our imagination clicks in. All of a sudden, we begin. As a musician, I start hearing melodies and music and want to write something down. But we also pray. Prayer becomes more instinctive, and our intuition comes out, and our vision. All of those things are part of our gift. Like Einstein says that the intuitive mind is the sacred gift. The intellect is the humble servant. We now have a world that honors the servant and does nothing about the gift. We've got it, all messed up, I think. And then we'll go do your little spot on hydration, and I'll give a little bit of different take. As we age, the two most important things, one is a function of the masculine or the yang, which is our strength, helping to part of bringing resiliency is a concept of anabolic health, restoration. Our bodies break down and build up. As we get older, we break down easier and faster than we build up. So the concept of health is how do we give a little bit of assistance, lend a helping hand in what I call anabolic health, which is, again, a function of in Chinese medicine, the yang or the masculine. But the yin, the feminine, is more important than the masculine. The idea to nourish the yin or the feminine energy is all about hydration. And it's not just about the water, the quality of the water we drink, how much water. It's about absorption. I find as people get older, they're not absorbing the water. How many people, when they get older, have to get up 3, 4, 5 times at night to go to the bathroom where you didn't when you were 20? So what's going on here? We're drinking, but we're not hydrating our cells or molecules. So part of keeping people healthy, and then we dry out, and that's what atherosclerosis is, and fibrosis of the heart, and stiffness of the joints, and all of this hypercalcifications in our body is all basically a drying out. We are drying out. We're dehydrating as we get older. So, but it's not a function of taking in more water. It's about how we nourish that essence, that energy, that endocrine energy, that feminine component of that energy. And so when we go to food, there's lots of foods that help that. They tend to be foods that are naturally salty, but not necessarily salt. So we can think of things like olives and feta cheese and seaweed and miso. All of these foods nourish that essence. And so here is where our food, again, becomes our medicine in a constitutional or personal way. And then I'll say also movement. So movement is not just moving your body. Movement has to do with blood movement, lymph movement, and oxygen movement. Every disease is a disease of stagnation. Cancer is all about stagnation. It's why cancer patients are 7 to 10 times higher risk of dying of blood clots or thrombosis than people that don't have cancer. The disease itself is a hypercoagulative state. And so you have blood stagnation, oxygen stagnation involving nitric oxide, peripheral vasodilation, and then lymphatic stagnation. So again, part of what we do is to help those things and help prevent that. And again, plants and food is very amphoteric. I mean, it's just beautiful. The plants and foods that inhibit us from abnormal coagulation are actually the same plants often that help us coagulate if we have a wound or an accident. So again, that's the intelligence in nature that man-made medicine or conventional medicine can never do. It can't carry the intelligence.
Wow.
And I would say the greatest threat to me, like we talk about our toxin environment, and I'm the opposite of morbid. I'm very much an eternal optimist. But if you said, what's the single greatest threat? The single greatest threat is the explosion of technology and now the addiction to it, and where everything we lose and what we think we're gaining in technology, what we're losing, because everything we do, whether we now take a car to work instead of walk, or a bicycle or a horse, yes, we get there faster, but what did we lose? Everything we do as a result of technology and what that offers, we're losing something. And so I would say, just looking at my own children, and people laugh at me, but Ed, I still don't have a smartphone. I still have an old flip phone. I still have an old flip phone.
There you go.
I'll be the last one left on the planet. It's the funniest thing. People can't believe it, but I do.
I can believe it.
I will confess to everyone.
Well, you have Jennifer. She's pretty smart.
You're right. She's got the smartphone. So I do have a spouse with the smartphone.
The secret to a good man is a better woman.
That's right.
So, wow. This is a very simple kind of threats and remedies note. Again, could be very dense and granular. But clearly we're dealing with chaos, fear, and insecurity. All right, we had a brush fire down the road yesterday. That's pretty scary. What's the remedy? Coherence. So chaos, coherence. Remedy, fear, love. Remedy of insecurity, connection. This is why we have community of practice. Mm-hmm. And people don't have this. People don't have grounded, rooted people in their lives. Then microbes have been making the news. Well, we have to build our terrain. We have to strengthen friendly microbes. They're infinitely more friendly microbes. It's exponential versus threatening ones. Disturbing chemicals. Well, we have to ban toxins. So DDT got banned. Glyphosate needs to be banned. Monsanto, that's now sold to Bayer, this is criminal. And then we have to make consumer choices to use biosafe materials, so natural plant materials from known sources. So it requires some education around everything that goes in and on and around us. Radiation, electromagnetic frequencies. Again, there's so much of that with such a saturation. We go to the woods, we go to the mountains, we go to the ocean. We power down, we feel the earth. So we have to feel the earth. We have to be in the earth. We have to connect to the earth. Our food needs to come from deep earth. And that's our connection, is our food, but also just our time in the yard with our shoes off. Over-reliance on medication, well, it's prescription medication, and it's also alcohol, pot, and other chemicals, self-medications, because people don't know what else to do. They're freaked out. So what we've been talking about is root cause and root solutions. And then loss of freedom and control. Well, spiritually, no one can take your soul. And so there's a state of mind here that goes on with it. And there's tons of, conspiracy theories going on, but we still have to live our lives with strength and purpose, practice, and again, come back to community. So this is trying to simplify the reality that we're all living in, and then looking at how are we dealing with any of these threats, and are we taking advantage of social, natural, ecological remedies. And what we're looking at in Bauman Wellness is really a movement from otherness, where we're all feeling lost and left out and displaced and, picked on and discredited and all that. So otherness and illness is the state of our society. If someone were to look at this from outer space, they'd go, wow, this place is a loony bin. This place is on a death march. This place is about to blow up because of this kind of the chaos from the reptile brain that's running people who are not well. Well, we have a higher brain. We have a higher knowledge. We have leaders. We have inspiration. We need to put the attention onto that. but most people are not getting exposure to that. So wellness, which is sort of a balanced lifestyle, sense of integrity, will also build a sense of oneness that here we are. This is our planet. This is our people. This is our life. And we have children that we want to pass on something better than what we're going through now. So being a person of faith, you know that after things collapse, they rebuild. And that, we're in a collapsing system. And also we see it lamentably for a lot of people whose health is collapsing. And certainly conventional approaches can do little to really restore that. They could perhaps prolong it, but they're missing traditional technologies that we know quite well that we can bring to people. Mr. Donnie?
Makes me think of one of my mentors, Buckminster Fuller, who says, yes, you never change things by fighting the existing reality.
Right.
To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I believe on. And then illness to wellness, to oneness. Mm-hmm. I love that concept. And just take a look at the word illness. What is the first letter of illness but I? And what are the first two letters of wellness but we? So to be well is a we thing, as you said. And so
we can go I to we to one.
Yeah, I to we to one. Yeah.
I to we to one.
Another one of my big mentors is a man named Horace Bedridge, who is who wrote the mathematical equations for us to land on the moon. So he's probably the Einstein of our time. He's a Ukrainian physicist, and maybe the most beautiful spirit I've ever met in my life. I mean, if anyone exudes like just so much love, and he's Ukrainian Catholic, but both a survivor of the Holocaust and a survivor of Stalin, being in concentration camps in Russia as well, him and his wife. And I've never seen anybody with so much love. But his whole concept, his book, actually, let me see. What's this book? Here's one of his 35 books. Oh, I don't know if you can see my book, see it.
Why don't you write it in the chat for us? That'll be the greatest. We could dig it out.
You wouldn't want to get this book because it's nothing but hardly anything but mathematical equations.
Okay.
But I will recommend his book. He has two books I recommend. One is called Celebrate Your Divinity.
That's good.
Beautiful book. And the other book is Your Miracle Life After Miracle Life. That's a brand new book he just wrote. Your Miracle Life After Miracle Life. So his name is Horace Bedridge. And
spell his last name if you would.
It's Bedjig.
Okay.
Bedridge.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, nice.
So anyway,
thank you for bringing him into our circle today. That's really cool.
Yeah. He's his writing is so profound and so beautiful and so diverse in his understanding of the world and of religions and of people. I mean, he's just got a way of framing things in this amazing way. So I've spent my whole life, kind of a student of theology, yes, amongst other things. And it's, you just kind of see people saying the same thing. There's just a few people still saying what I call really fresh things that are just, wow, that's just really profound and beautiful and fresh and inspirational. Yeah. That's what I said. I think like what you said, we all need to inspire each other.
We do.
And there's nothing better than just having a sense of inspiration. And I'll say one other thing, and that is, medicine has gotten really good at removing suffering and pain. They basically give people enough opiates and enough benzos to get people not to feel pain, but they're very poor at bringing people joy. So to bring joy is very different than to remove suffering and pain. And we have to start realizing how important it is to bring joy to people's lives, and particularly people that are suffering or people that are in transition. And I'll say one of my patients a while back. Mom was dying in the hospital and was miserable, did not want to be in the hospital. They were poking her, pricking her, waking her up at all different times, throwing lights on, scanning her, and she was terminally ill. And she said to me, well, what do I do with my mom? She's miserable and she's dying. What do I do? What do I do? I said, go get a dozen roses and get these essential oils. And when she walked in the room with the roses in her hand, it was the first time her mom had smiled since she was in the hospital. Then she brought the roses over next to her. She inhaled the scent of the rose and she smiled again. And then her mom went on to anoint her feet and anoint her forehead and her wrist. And she said her mom was calm the rest of the time and in a beautiful state. And the experience was magnificent. Which could have been, so we have to, again, work at bringing joy to each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I built this model of wellness practices, and there's others, of course, but I think 5 seems to be an interesting pattern. And the hypothesis I have is that if people do 1 of these a day, they get a pretty good day. If they do 2 a day, they have a better day. If they do 3 a day, 4 a day, 5 a day, they have a great day. And we can show this and do this with each other too. So in the case of the elderly person who is really on her last legs, those people are not getting quality food. Even if it's small sips of quality food, they're just not getting it. But we all need to learn, we all need to gather food. We have to be hunters and gatherers to gather the real food that we need and not be hung up on isms and ideologies around food. That is completely inappropriate, and it's a sales technique. It's not a healing practice. And then moving, I like to call it joyful moving rather than exercise. Exercise is fine too. It's good to build weight and strength and flexibility and balance. But this idea of joy is part of our inheritance as beings, and we can enjoy moving and enjoy. Even someone in the bed can move their arms or move their leg or move their eyebrows, or we could play Simon Says with each other and do things together just so we're getting a sense of movement. And mindfulness is come into the vernacular, and I'll talk about what it means to me, but it's still time to reflect. That I find it very odd that people consume so much food, and people consume so much information, and people consume so much opinion. They're glutted. They don't even know what's theirs and what's other people's. And mindfulness is being in a state of presence and stillness and being observant. So as we get older, and we are getting older, the time and place for reflection is really the moments of insight and inspiration, as Donnie mentioned. And then healing relationships. People are in relationships, and we relate to food, we relate to art, we relate to each other, we relate to all kinds of things. But a healing relationship is where there's nourishment. And how many people do we know who have nobody who loves them, nobody who listens to them, nobody who supports them unconditionally? But that's what we do. And then it's a healing relationship. And there's reciprocity. There's energy that's exchanged. And that's healing. When we go see a person in a hospital and we smile and bring them something nice to drink or to eat or share flowers or a poem, that's a healing relationship. And it's not for ourselves. A true relationship is loving the beloved and seeing the beloved in the other, not being narcissistic. And then service is really what defines us as beings, really how we contribute to the greater good, not just the personal good. So the idea here for us to observe are these different types of practices, of activities, of behaviors that are done with affect, where there's feeling, and there's action, and there's cognition, and there's relationship on all levels. And to do that, we have to really be unencumbered by the overconsumption of food and information and toxicity. So this is what I see as a simple practice model, and we can all improve in any or all of these areas. And a good day is when we're finding time and doing it with commitment and attentiveness, and we go, that was pretty nice. Anything to add or amplify here, Donnie?
Yeah, I love everything that you're saying. I'd say that I often like people to be aware. Awareness is a really important first step. And then with awareness comes this concept of our being self and our doing self. And so I often tell people to think in terms to realize how short our time is on earth, and that, we want to be able to, when our time comes to leave, to reflect, as you said, be mindful, to reflect and contemplate on our life and think about, was my doing self, what I did or what I lived for, really about my purpose? Was that really why I was here? Did I fulfill the essence of who I really am? And I think a lot of people will be very surprised when that moment comes, that they really miss the boat about, what because we think too much in terms of a mundane kind of way, that a commercialized way to our life. What really matters, having a humble life of service and of giving for others is really much more meaningful. And that when we're doing things that are a reflection of our being, then that's where true joy and happiness and health resides. So that's an essential part to health. And I love the concept of relationship and engaging, and this concept of unity. One of the terms that I've given to understand Mederi medicine and Mederi care is I'm actually referring to it as a unitive model of healing. It's not
I saw that.
It's not an alternative model. It's not a complementary model. It's not a collaborative model. It's not any of those things. It's because it's really about the unity of how everything works together. And I'm very much about working on attitude, because I feel like one of the things that we've all slipped into, which is easy, is to be against things. And so I stress to people, don't tell me what you're against, or like for their diet, I said, don't tell me what you don't eat. Tell me what you eat. Because when I ask somebody, the first thing you do is I said, all right, tell me about your diet, like what you eat. They automatically go and list, well, I don't eat this, I don't eat that. I said, I want to know what you don't eat. I want to know what you eat. And so just like, when it comes to just life in general, it's so easy to be against something than it is to be for something. So I tend to like to choose the latter and to figure out what we can be for and what unites us.
Yeah. So here's a nice one. When the diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When the diet is right, medicine is of no need. Ayurvedic proverb. So we hear a lot about Hippocrates, and he's got some good words, but when the diet is wrong, and even people who eat healthy often eat a diet that's not working for them. And it's usually because somebody told them it was going to be right, and they're not making their own choices. And they're not looking at their own history and their own kind of ethnicity, culture, background, and they're not striving to get high quality food. So we can replace it. That's our goal. This is the model that I created some time ago, and my wife Chris created some visuals for me, which is always helpful. And it's Eating for Health and Resilience. So Eating for Health is the name of the model, and it's an approach. It's not a diet. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that when we start to quantify, we lose quality. And then we get into all this comparison stuff. So what you can see here is on the outside is beverages, and the greatest part of our intake is fluid. And then the next circle is carbohydrates, and it's colorful carbohydrates, and it's fresh, natural carbohydrates. And then the next circle is what I call booster foods. And these are herbs and spices and seaweed and algae and nutritional yeast. It can also include honey and bee pollen. It can include fermented foods. It can include cocoa, cacao, things like that. But things that some people now call booster foods or superfoods. And then at the core of it is a seed, because the seed is the center of life. And clearly it's an ancient seed. It's not a genetically modified seed. And then out of seeds come oils. So this is a nice model because it can be a cleansing diet, it can be a building diet, it can be a balancing diet, depending on the choices and the percentages and the constitution and condition of the person. So it's certainly not a one-shot fits all, but most people are really very lacking in that booster food circle with herbs and spices and seaweeds and condiments. And the condiments from every culture are what really make the food sing. So whether it's Thai food or Indian food or Mexican food or African food or Asian food or European food, even Native American food, there's typically herbs and spices and nuts and fruits and berries. So this eating for health model is more than just macronutrient balance and more than micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals. So the most interesting part of nutrition are phytonutrients, which are plant alkaloids, typically carotenes and bioflavonoids, and there's thousands of them. So people buy a multivitamin or they buy some kind of an inexpensive herb capsule, and there's nothing much in there because it's poor quality and usually it's been oxidized. And then this model provides variety of fibers. There's many types of fibers, many types of soluble and insoluble fibers and fluids and ferments, which are naturally occurring microorganisms. So we need all that to support the gut, the nerves, the body, build resilience. So looking at what someone's eat, it's easy for me and the people I teach now to be able to go, you're getting some of these eating for health constituents, but there's several that you're missing. And you could probably save your $200 a month on average vitamins and health products if you put half of that money into buying the best food that you can eat and eating it in a mindful way. Again, products are very helpful, but they don't replace diet. And people who go, but I really like to eat my Safeway cake, it's hard to get there from here. If people are addicted to sugars and addicted to sweets and addicted to snacks, and that's their self-medication, they have to unwind from that. And that will be done with the relationship and with mentoring. So it's not just do this, it's good for you, but it takes an ongoing support. And it's typically from a friend, from somebody who cares about them. Could be a family member or not, because family members aren't always willing and able to step up to the plate to eat for health. So, I had a fellow with stage 4 cancer, and he said, I'm separating from my wife now because she doesn't want to do juices and herbs and, powerful therapeutics. And I said, good for you. And he did beautifully, but he had to do it on his own, or he had to seek other support and friends. And being in a wellness community is invaluable for people who are struggling with serious illness. So Donnie, this is the Ed model here. It's been around 30 years now.
Yeah, I mean,
and it holds up. It hasn't gone out of style. I haven't had to eat my words, which is pretty good.
No, it's a great foundational model. I think I don't really have any issues with the model as a whole. I'll just kind of add, like, for the way that I think in terms of personalizing diets to people can be based on many, many criteria. One would be the constitution or energetics of the patient, and the body type, whether they're yin deficient, yang deficient, lung deficient, those things go into it. Another thing would be the environment, the location of where someone lives, the time of year that it is would change what I might recommend. The what I call the microenvironment assessment. So when I do an assessment, I look at all kinds of potential deficiencies that somebody may have, whether somebody is deficient in a certain food. Then if they're iron anemic, for example, we would need to have their foods be building their blood a little bit. And then acute diseases, it could be people in convalescent recovering from an illness or something. I would do different foods then. When they have an illness, you want to puree things, do more soups for people. We look at traditional diets, what ethnicity somebody is, what culture they are, what religion they are, cost and availability, what's good for the environment. These are all kinds of things that kind of go for what I call adapting a diet more to the individual. And I base my general dietary plan on tradition and science and common sense logic. And so, my book back in on cancer, written in 1999, I don't have any changes to the diet that I would recommend other than sort of embellishing what I wrote back then. But there isn't anything that I believe I wrote incorrectly, because I'm not into fad diets, or I'm not into jumping on bandwagons just because people start telling people. Like all of a sudden people start believing that a ketogenic diet is a way to treat cancer, when there's no traditional diet ever in any tradition set out for cancer that remotely resembles a ketogenic diet. There is little to no science to back up a ketogenic diet. There's only theory. And so many of the mistakes made on how people choose to eat are solely based on theory. And it's Sherlock Holmes that says it's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one twists facts to suit theories rather than to build theories upon fact-finding. We were told in the 1970s that cholesterol caused heart disease. Eggs have cholesterol, therefore everybody should stop eating eggs and butter and eat, basically rancid polyunsaturated fat. And, all kinds of crazy things, people did. People went on extreme fat reduction diets for heart disease, Pritikin diets, where all the fat was taken out of everything. Then they've gone to like extreme, take all the carbohydrates diets. So my concept is whole food, real food, dietary diversity, and bring joy, eat with joy and passion. It's not supposed to be a penance to figure out how to eat well. You need to enjoy what you're eating. You need to have a relationship with your food, a healthy relationship with your food on all levels, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. And, I don't want to get into it too far, but my number one food is really for people to eat more whole grains and make more bread. So if I was going to say, if there's one thing
I remember that.
To do, I am a big believer in whole grain breads made with good sourdough cultures, and that the research on whole grains and bread and the health promoting qualities are greater than any other food group. When you really analyze data, when you really go into what is associated with to having the least amount of chronic disease, aid in longevity, and be cost effective. People that are relatively poor can make just as good healthy bread as somebody rich. It's not some crazy exotic food that costs a fortune that only rich people can get. So I am a big believer in eating more potatoes and whole grain and now we're learned about the microbiome. There's no better food to create diversity in the microbiome and build short chain fatty acids and butyrate that aid in T cell function and all kinds of things that are essential to our overall health, and in particular our immune system health. And so that's all I have.
Well, you made some people happy here. You know, the people who are like, well, my so-and-so told me no gluten, no bread,
Yeah.
no fun,
No, I mean,
no fun diet.
I am, but you did mention earlier, I am a person that believes in eating as little glyphosate food as humanly possible. It's unavoidable, folks. It's in the organic food now. We can't avoid it.
It's in the ecobiome. You know, it's in the air, water.
We can minimize it. It just puts a hole in your gut. Basically, it antagonizes various amino acids like lysine, and it's just really nasty stuff. But it hurts us slowly, so we don't know about it. So it's a slow toxin, not an immediate toxin.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Let's see. So I'm going to go through some of these and let Donnie hold back for a bit.
Okay.
And then we'll have a grand conclusion like our crescendo. So I guess, you know, it's 5 practices. So eating, we love talking about food. We have many workshops this week, and it's our strength. It's our foundation. It's first principle. And then movement is a gift. It's a joyful part of daily life. Do what you love that feels good. Because if I say do something, go for a marathon, and that's not you're not in condition for that, it will never happen. Stretching and moving throughout the day is necessary. It's life. A cat, a dog, every other creature does this frequently with focus on breath, body, rhythm, and pace. So my feeling about joyful movement is it's not exactly going to the gym, watching TV while you're on the treadmill, or straining to gain, you know, hard muscle mass. There are athletes who do that. I understand that. But this sense of being in the physical body and loving the physical body and strengthening it with rhythm and pace is really a key. And then many, many different forms of joyful movement: walking, dancing, gardening, bicycling, swimming, sports, working out, yoga, Tai Chi, you know, the list goes on. But finding some every day, it doesn't have to be the same one. And it's not 3 times a week. It's just the joy of movement. And then exercising at home and exercising outdoors and in a gym, and even exercising at work or having physical activity breaks at work. And a company, we do company wellness, worksite wellness is company. You want your people to be well and happy and whole and productive. We'll give them a break, give them a half an hour to do meditation and stretching and breathing and other kinds of things. And these are productive activities. And we certainly have to tonify. Donnie was talking about anabolic process, which is building process. And with age, most people go through a catabolic process where things are starting to collapse. So, you know, the rapid disintegration, and we're in a collapsing cycle right now in the world. So for us to be resilient, and, you know, we have to build strength, inner strength, strength of character, strength of love, and build endurance and chi, which is essence and life force. So I spoke about this morning. I said to my wife, I'll have to step up my practice because I talked about it. So I got to literally walk my talk. Benefits of exercise, we certainly all know this. You can take a minute to read through it. It's supportive. It's support for all body life. Mindfulness is interesting because it's a state of awareness. It's not actually meditation. It can be meditation, but it's an intentional time out to tune in. So people go, I sit in the morning for 10 minutes and then I, you know, run. It's not healthy. My advocacy is 4:00 tea time. And I don't mean golf. I mean 4:00 in the day, take 20 minutes, have a cup of tea, boil water, have plants, have a piece of fruit or a healthy snack. Just hang out. If you can, have tea with your friends. It paces the afternoon. Civilized cultures do that. They don't work around the clock and become locked into their computer. So for me, one of the mantras is simmer down, because I get busy, I get overheated, I get agitated, and I go, Ed, simmer down. You've turned the crank up too hot, and you're really kind of becoming irritating. And I go, oh, okay. And then observe and listen, because listening is how we learn. Listen's how we grow. And then another aphorism is calm yourself, which is centered and living in the moment. So with mindfulness, we're centered, we're quiet, we're inward, we're listening to the birds and the bees, we're following our breath, and we're living in the moment. And it's a state of awareness that's non-judgmental. So for most people I work with, the critic, the judgment is really hurting them. It's building a lot of self-destructive thought and action and unconscious behavior. So I do food, I do healing, I do, mentoring in all ways, but this judgmental thing is, Oprah just did an interview, and she said, everybody on my show, no matter who they are, at the end they go, was I good enough? Was I okay? Even people who are big shots, is that we're not blessed. We know God loves us, but we forget. So that's a big part of spiritual life. And then with mindfulness so the first part is to be aware. The second is to quiet and just be. And the third is to actually extend out loving kindness. Because we can do that. That's a practice. We can do it for anybody, anywhere, at any time, including for ourselves. And then it can look like a seated meditation or relaxation or reflection. And this is how we balance the nervous system. If somebody is wired and they take herbs that are nervines and calmative, but they're not slowing down and they're not doing mindfulness practice, the herbs are not going to typically work. If they take this break, they take a time out, they take their cup of tea, they breathe into their belly, it enables them to cultivate moments of inner peace, no matter what's going on outside. So this is something that we just need to leverage some time and put it on our priority list. Here's a data point. Mindfulness modulates immunity, that it's a premier coping practice. It reduces stress hormones. So people will go to Donnie and go, Donnie, I'm stressed. And you'll go, here's Vital Adapt, or here's Power Adapt, or here's various, great, tremendous botanical products. But they work together while there's some self-regulation. And in this case, yoga significantly increased antimicrobial products to help mitigate infection with 30 minutes a day of something such as yoga, meditation, music, nature walk. This is what we can do together. If we do it together, we do it. If we do it alone, we don't do it. We slip out of that kind of purposeful state. Healing relationship, where it's been said we're as healthy as the 5 people we spend time with. I don't recall who said it first, but if you think about it, are you in healthy, functional, or dysfunctional relationships? And family of origin dysfunction is common and traumatic. So it just is. We've gone through generation upon generation of neglect and abuse. I wish it wasn't so, but it seems to be the case. So understanding that and understanding that trauma is something that contributes to chronic and acute illness, and unpacking that with proper care is part of the healing process and the wellness process. But in a moment, if you're with someone who cares about you, love heals, love connects, it validates our being. So if I'm with one of you, it enables me to be in the space of wellness, of resilience, vitality, and joy, and it self-regulates. So that's being in a healing relationship. It's not a codependent relationship. It's not an exploitive relationship. It's just showing up in a good way for people. And sometimes it's certainly not what we do, it's how we are. And that changes because people relate to one another. People will relate to the highest energy frequency, not the lowest. Most of what we see is low energy. Communication is a skill. And I think it was George Bernard Shaw said, the problem with communication is we assume that it exists. And people don't communicate well. People are just talking and expressing, but they're not relating and listening. And so it's something to work on and to listen to ourselves and to be an artist in the way we present ourselves. Thoughts and feelings and values either attract or separate us. So if we're part of the mean team, we're going to say mean things. We're going to attract mean people. We're going to make a bunch of money, and we're going to take over the world, and we're going to, blah, blah, blah. So people cluster around thoughts, feelings, and values. Well, that kind of energetic and conversation is one I avoid. I'm looking to be with high-minded people, intelligent people, resourceful people, creative people of all different shades and colors and things. That's why we have a wellness community. So these are healing relationships. The spiritual attracts, the material repels. Conflict challenges us to engage carefully. So that's pretty interesting to me. There's always conflict. Conflict is again, creative tension. So how do we engage? Well, carefully. And then we choose to relate to appreciative people. So if someone's not appreciating me, I go, okay, fine. Not why are they not appreciating me, but what type of response do I get from being with them? When I'm with the people I love, it opens me up to loving myself. When I'm doing my reflective practice and I connect with that state of being, it enables me to show up even in the midst of noise and confusion, to bring that to wherever I am. And this is a practice, is healing relationships. And ask the people you're with who are struggling if they'll work on it with you, because that's why we have long-term relationships. That's why we're married. That's why we have family relations. It's not to walk away from family, but to bring family to a state of purpose that, we have karma together. So let's make the most of this. And if we learn these wellness practices, they can be shared by anybody at any age, at any time. Social genomics. Genomics is a new term. It's a popular term. It's an important term. But social stress is a stronger predictor of chronic disease-related mortality than physical inactivity, alcohol use, and smoking. Social stress. What did the pandemic do? It put everybody in their little cage. It told everybody to be fearful, not to go to the beach, not to go outside. You never know who's going to sneeze on you and infect you. It was a very, very harsh social experiment that is really a very unproven one, an unstable one. So what's the opposite of social stress is social engagement. And social engagement is a predictor of wellness and recovery. And finally, the fifth practice, which we can do quite a lot and do it without any fanfare, is service, which is embodied spirituality. So it's in the body, it's in the cells, it's in the nerves, it's in the heart, it's in the soul. And we listen to the calling of our soul to direct us how and where to serve. Well, if you take a few minutes and you go, how can I be of service today? You'll get a message, or as you walk along, there'll be an opportunity to show up and help. We can offer support to those in need who want to regain resilience, vitality, and joy. That's wellness. We can't really do much for people who don't want it, or people who are not willing to work on themselves. I can't do anything for someone. I don't fix people. I teach people. I care for people. I believe in people. I tell them it can change. Whatever it is, it's resilient. It's plastic. There's a power in ourselves that transforms things, and that's what we're doing. No act of kindness goes unnoticed. Well, who notices? Well, Creator notices all act of kindness, kind thoughts. It's really important. And then world wellness will reflect a quantum shift from selfishness to oneness. Do you think world wellness is possible? I do. Well, it doesn't look that way. Of course, it doesn't look that way. The caterpillar doesn't look like the butterfly. The compost is things breaking down, but out of it comes nutrients to support new life. Collaborative service gives us hope, collective guidance, and vitality. So the sort of the cherry on the, you know, on the sundae is service, is that we are here to serve. If people go, I don't know why I'm here. I'm here to take care of my grandchild. Well, that's good. That's service. I'm here to make the world a better place. That's service. I'm here to learn about nutrition and health and wellness and music and art and all these kinds of things. That's so we can be of service. It's not self-serving. It's to serve the greater good and to bring forward the next iteration of society. Donnie, you can catch up to some of those, please.
Yes. Well, the Dalai Lama reminds us that spirituality is to be concerned with qualities of the human spirit that bring happiness to both self and others, that include love, compassion, patience, tolerance, forgiveness, contentment, and a sense of responsibility and a sense of harmony. I think that one thing that we forget, that sometimes this isn't always equated to a sense of feeling good or an ability to necessarily believe that things are going to work out to be perfect. So you can be peace, you can do justice, and you can make a huge difference. But on this earth, there is imperfection. There is things that happen, and we never want to let that get in the way of us striving to make the world a better and better place. Otherwise, it will drag us down. And so if we can overcome that and deal and shed a few tears sometimes and
Yes.
feel a little pain, but through that, we get a sense of joy underneath of all of that. So I often said the greatest thing one can do for another human being is to lay down their life for somebody. Well, that doesn't feel good. That isn't really something that feels good, but yet we're told that is, possibly the greatest thing you can do is sacrifice yourself for another human being. And we admire people, and I always say that humans can be subhuman. People that look to do evil or harm.
Yes.
People can be normal humans doing not much great good in the world, not much harm in the world, just getting by. Humans can be superhuman.
Yes.
People that look to do great things in the world and are doing good things, making the world better. But then people can also escalate to a level of divine, where they're not even part of this world, but they're in the world. So if we can see ourselves in our total spiritual self, we can then separate and not be bogged down by anything and just be the pure divine energy. And that's what we aspire to be, but we have to undergo a daily transformation and keep becoming a new creation and just keep going and knowing that there is, life is a pilgrimage. People like to say, well, I'm on a journey, but I always like to use the word pilgrimage because
I like
pilgrimage is always centered towards God. And so we're always, no matter what it is, that's our final goal. It doesn't matter what we're doing, that component is omnipresent in everything we are and everything we do.
Wow. I'm down with that, Don.
Mm-hmm. And I think music, we both share music. And so I'll say, to me, I when I contemplate or reflect, I reflect sometimes. This is, if I was, the creator, or if I was this entity that allowed everything to be created, like the whole universe was created, but there's an energy behind me, and that energy has an intellect, and all of a sudden planet Earth developed, humans somehow evolved, came, and I was looking back on humans today, I would have to say that if I was just to see, the evolution, from whatever, these primitive cave people to who we are, I would have to say music would be one, if not the most impressive things that humans were able to create and have the capacity to do.
And to enjoy together.
Yep.
Yeah. So to kind of begin to wrap this one up, we have to facilitate transformation.
Yes.
So whether through deeds or words, the merit of our every contribution to social well-being lies in a resolute commitment to discover that precious point of unity, where contrasting perspectives overlap and around which contending people can coalesce.
Mm.
That's when the cake's done.
Yes.
That's when it comes out of the oven. There's diversity, there's differences, there's all levels of inequalities, but there's this commitment to social well-being, which is higher than personal, and to planetary well-being and the ecology of our world, because our world has to support us. And right now it's being thrashed. But this point of unity, the unitive model that Donnie was speaking of, and it's contending people coalesce. And we're the enzymes for that to happen. That's all. And an enzyme doesn't get degraded in a transformative process. So if we're doing things from a willful place, from a ego place, from a self-gain glory place, then we're going to get burned out, and it'll catch up with it. But if we're coming from this wellness place of wellness and wholeness and oneness, we're doing the work, and ripples happen. So that's the thing: is we're all pebbles in a pond, and we're creating good ripples. And everyone we connect with in Bauman Wellness Community and Mederi Center are two phenomenal organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think here's my summary. Wellness works when wellness practices are performed on a daily level. So we could talk here all day, but if we're not working the work, if we're not walking the talk, it's not going to change. Wellness works when programs are provided to facilitate and support wellness practice, because people need to learn. People need to go back to school. People need to learn to walk and to talk and to breathe and to eat and to play and to share and all this stuff. There's a lot of misinformation comes down the pipe every day, and we need to kind of build relationships and community around that. Wellness works when research demonstrates efficacy for each practice. So we know that eating well has benefit. We know that exercise has benefit. Meditation, mindfulness has benefit. So we need to generate and put into practice research that demonstrate efficacy for each practice to prevent and manage chronic disease. We can reverse many chronic diseases if we could get people's attention and hold it long enough. So when people are with us, they're in the flow, and then they go home, they turn on the TV, and it's back to the old way. And wellness works when data is collected to show the synergistic effect of 5 wellness practices across time for diverse individuals and populations. So this is the great experiment. We've had this pandemic experiment, and there's a lot of, deceit around it. And we're not getting the real story or really how to deal with it effectively. But this wellness idea of food and movement and mindfulness and relationship and service that's done deliberately, intentionally with each other, for other people, it has power. It's magic. And it's simple too. It's not incomprehensible. So that's our hypothesis. Donnie, a comment around that?
I love it. I mean, it's a great hypothesis. It's something for us all to strive for.
Yeah.
I think that we have to admit to ourselves and a concept of involvement. So I always tell people that once you're You have to be involved. You have to be involved with, if you want to grow spiritually, it takes involvement, it takes relationship, and in all facets of the word. Everything comes down to this concept of relationship. That's why we say your food is a relationship. Once you understand that, once you smell food, once you taste food, and you really relate to it, and involve yourself in that relationship, you naturally trend towards eating good and healthy food. It becomes very organic to do those things. And so, and I'll say, back up a little bit. I mean, you mentioned a little bit before about using herbs and bathing our molecules and our cells with herbs, and that there are two ways that we can use our medicine. And I'm very comprehensive with what I do, but I like to have the medicine that I give be lending a helping hand, and knowing that we're doing the work, not the plants themselves. So we can give high dosages of certain things, and yes, calm a nervous system down if we need to. If that doesn't quite do it, we have pharmaceuticals that will block certain receptors and calm us. But the best and most therapeutic medicine is when those herbs lend a helping hand and work in a harmonious way with our nervous systems, with our bodies, to bring us back to a state of harmony. And often we need a little push, but we don't need our medicine to do the work for us. We just need that help. And so that's the best kind of medicine, because again, it's a relationship. When taking herbs as a relationship medicine, it's not about just what the plants provide. It's about how they interact with our molecules and our cells, which go back since the beginning of time. People of every culture have used plants for medicine and food for medicine. This isn't a new idea, what we're talking about. This is just just following what I think is a natural course of human evolution, which then ultimately, again, when you go back to resiliency, our planet has resiliency too. So you'd be surprised of how well it can heal when just given a push in the right direction.
Yes, indeed. So I've got a couple more comments, and then I'm going to open up for group conversation. Wellness is an operating system, just like a computer has an operating system. And as Donnie said, we've been somewhat co-opted by the speed and the power of our technology and artificial intelligence. And in the right hands, it can be very helpful, but in the wrong hands, it's actually quite harmful. So we have to regain ownership of wellness operating systems. And it starts with the way we wake up and how we maintain this kind of allegiance to natural living throughout the day, and how we let it go at night when we get our rest and we show up the next day. Wellness is a team sport. The teams with the best organization win. The teams with the best coaches win. The teams that have players who play for each other win. So we're not in a competition, we're in a team sport. And this type of mentality and doing things collectively has so much potential. It gets liberated. It's so much easier than trying to do everything ourselves and trying to fight against contending belief systems and contending agendas. The agenda here is to create the world we want to live in, that we can pass on to our kids and their kids, and to demonstrate that we're going to win the championship. And then, and Donnie, in addition to being such a powerhouse on so many levels, he's also a sports guy, as am I. And there's just real great joy to watch sports and to watch teams that know how to win and that can clutch up at the right moment. So for us, we have to clutch up. This is the moment where we come forward, we work together, we follow the program, we stay in our lanes, we do the best we can. We don't try to overdo it, but we do it together. And if we can build this kind of of integrity within ourselves individually, and then have friends and colleagues that we can do it with, we're going to see this result, and it's going to show. So thank you, Donnie.
You're welcome.
And Mederi. And then look at this, friends. Don't you want some of that at home? I mean, just the poster alone is good. So Donnie has a jazz CD where he's composed and arranged the music and playing. Are you mostly by yourself doing all the parts, or you have a couple of?
Oh, no. Well, half the CD is recorded with a live band in the studio. Yes. The other half is kind of built in the studio, and it's a mixture. I mean, of course, I'm playing all the bass parts on it, but Dave Bolin plays all the drum parts. There's two different percussionists. There's 3 different keyboard players playing on it. Right. Actually, 4 different ones, because I play keyboards on a couple of the songs. But half the songs are recorded with a live band in the studio. The first song called "Lift Your Heart" is, for example. So I'm on my way to making a second one. Actually, I've got about half the material recorded already for a second one. And I'll say with regard to sports, I'm particularly, I love all sports, but I'm very much in love with basketball. So that's my real sport, because it's so fluid. It's very much like jazz. It's very musical, and that there's all this collective conversation going on without anybody speaking any words at all. It's very poetic and beautiful and musical, and so and very much works like plant medicines in our body. You know, they're just able to have that collective ability to listen and respond, as opposed to just perform a function.
Absolutely. So, friends, you can buy this CD from Mederi, or you can donate to Mederi and receive CDs.
CD is $15 for the actual CD, and or if you're just someone that listens to music online, all of the Spotify and iTunes and CD Baby, wherever people download music, they can just plug it in, and it's 99 cents a song if you want to do it that way. You won't
buy the disc. You won't get the beautiful cover. CD. The album cover is worth the cost.
No, listen. It is, and. There's
For Christmas, I bought 6 of these, and my wife bought 3. And she said, "Here, Ed, here's a Donnie CD."
That's the funniest story.
That's for real too.
I know.
I'm always trying to surprise him.
I know you can't surprise me, honey. I'm sorry. All right, so a quick commercial. So I said programs are great. These are names of our programs. And these are programs we offer virtually, we can offer locally, and they're all, really, really sweet. We'll talk about them as the week goes on. And then this is a description of affordable nutrition. I'm not going to go over it right now, but it's a good baseline program for people who need to get the facts. Donnie deals with the upstream, late stage disease, and I'm trying to work in the middle and get people before they get so sick. And then we love Kidz Culinary Academy and kids cooking programs. Through this week, we have several different food demos, some of which the kids are doing the cooking. So that's going to be super fun. And then this is a reminder that Mederi is a nonprofit, Bauman Wellness is a nonprofit, and we greatly appreciate and even depend on your donations. So if you're able to help us financially, it'll enable us to help other people who lack means. So you can go to Bauman Wellness Donate, go to bowmanwellness.com and do that good service. And we will certainly shoot you a tax deductible contribution and invite you to our jam when Donnie comes to Berkeley to play. Can we have a round of applause for all of us? Thank you. You can unmute yourself. And I see Jennifer came to visit, so I don't know if she was here for the whole time. Jen, would you say hello and share a little bit?
First of all, to both of you and Donnie, thank you very much. This was an amazing presentation. I just am so reflective of how important it is everywhere in our world, in our country, for our children, in our communities. So it was very inspiring, and it's very nice to see that work like this is culminating.
Yeah.
So thank you from my heart to both of you. I know
welcome.
that you, I have never met you before. As I said, I know Donnie, and I know that his heart and soul is committed at so many levels to better our humankind. And I certainly felt that from this presentation. If I may, it left me with many thoughts, but two that I wanted to raise before saying goodnight. And one was, I happen to be, as Donnie knows, in the area of technology, and children and technology is my focus. And I agree with what Donnie said, that, technology is in so many ways negatively impacted our environment. It's very difficult. I work at a federal policy level, and everybody on this Zoom, I'm sure, understands how complicated Washington is these days, and has been for a while. So, but the thing that I wanted to say is that I truly believe, and if you look at the World Economic Forum and what's going on in Davos, Switzerland, in the world, that they say by the time 2030, 80% of the jobs today don't even have a name. And that means we're moving into a disruptive technology, a world that's going to be very different than ours. And I raise that in this conversation today because when we talk about team and inclusivity, I'd like to see this, I'm a Rotarian for many years, to bring this to the communities and to bring this to the world. But we have to be all inclusive, and we can't, if that's the direction that the world is moving in, I don't think we're going to be able to slice it in half and say, here's how we believe, and, what you believe may not be the healthiest way. Somehow finding a language that communicates to them is going to be very, very important, so that they do feel like they're not left out just because they embrace this disruptive technologies that's coming, because they may feel that what has been provided in the world today has not been correct. And I don't even know, none of us know exactly what that's going to be. Getting it. And I think that the greatest place to start is with our kids today.
Yes.
Right? Because it's harder to change people at my age, right? I'm 40 years in Washington. These brains are not easy to change, as we all see. And but the children, it is easier, and getting out and relating to them. So I'd like to follow up with both you and Donnie on this, and
we can do that. Yeah, most definitely.
That's great. Might be possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And my mother thanks you too. She's sitting beside me.
I love her.
She's great.
Yeah, well, you'll get to see her, so I'll just show you.
There she is. Hey, Mom. Hey there. Hi. Way to show up.
This afternoon,
I love.
Hi.
Hi,
everybody. I was there this afternoon.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
and
here.
She's under Donnie's care and is moving into her 88th year. And we just got back from the Southwest and Sedona and Santa Fe and all of that. And she's COPD, and she's breathing and golfing and doing all great things. And
Thank you.
That's a good thing. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to my comments. But more importantly, I appreciate having joined this conversation today.
It's our pleasure, believe me. Couple others. Rob, you got a comment? This must be a treat for you.
Oh, wow. There's really no words. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Your knowledge and your presentation, and then Donnie being here and then sharing his incredible knowledge.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful. And I mean, there's nothing like it out there. I mean, and we need to just get it out to the people and continue to give our love. And this
indeed.
the wellness to oneness is just an incredible formula. It's just nothing like it.
It's an operating system, my friend.
You guys are just totally awesome, and I'm just full of love and life, and just thank you so much.
Thank you. I can feel it. It feels good.
Donnie, do you know Rob? Have you had the personal?
I just met him on the Zoom before we all started, but I know of him, and I know him indirectly. Yes.
I'll have him send you some of his honey and some of his herbs. They're really good.
Well, I just uploaded another slide on honey and its cancer suppressing effects. I mean, honey is one of the greatest foods in the world. I mean,
certainly
people
is.
don't understand this stuff. It's an amazing food. Honey and bee products are the only food that every culture in the entire world has a history of using. There's no other food. There's no other substance. No matter where you go on the planet, they'll have history in their culture of using honey and bee products.
We got to have good plants for the bees to come.
Yeah. And I always tell people, I could say, all right, Donnie, if you had one herb, you were, caught on a deserted island and can only have one medicine with you, what it would be. I always say, it may not be a true herb, but I would say propolis, without a doubt, is my number one favorite medicine. Every week I got another guy just with a diabetic leg ulcer by his feet. They wanted to amputate his toe because the wound wouldn't heal. And we make a product called U-Heal, which is propolis and dragon's blood predominantly. And I gave, a couple things internally to take as well. 3 weeks later, the guy, his wound doctor, was like floored. He wanted to know everything that he did because the wound's completely healed almost. And they were ready to amputate. He had been to a wound clinic. They tried everything. And so propolis has never, ever failed me, ever. With MRSA, you name MRSA, it basically, I'll put my life on the line for it with that stuff.
I gotcha.
Yeah, that's great. We just harvested 700 pounds in the last 2 weeks of my honey. And, I've always sent Anna some each year, and Jason Miller and Sean and all of them. I've always sent them a little bit of treats and some honeycomb. And
awesome.
It's just great to have friends and like-minded people. I just love you all, and your books and things that you've done. I just thank you so much, not only for helping me, but the thousands of people, the lives that you've touched. To me, is just, it's just so emotional, and I just love you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, next time you send one of your honey treats, put a little note to Ann and say, give Donnie a little bit.
Okay. You'll be seeing it. Believe me, you'll be seeing it. Please.
My name is Kim. I'm on the East Coast.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, nice to meet you. So I am also privileged to work with Donnie and have for over 9-10 years now.
Nice.
And I'm also a cancer survivor. So thanks to Donnie, my health is stronger than it's ever been, and I'm older than I've ever been. So, and I credit all of it to his brilliance. Tonight's session was wonderful. A great, lot of great reminders and reflections. And I took lots of notes. So I'm looking forward to going back to those, and I'm looking forward to the links that I will share with other people in my world. But I just wanted to thank you both for this time. And Donnie, I love you. You know that.
Thank you, Kim. I love you too. I love you as well.
And I'm so grateful that I got the invitation to attend tonight, and just wanted to say thank you.
Well, I'm going to just end with a blessing and just ask us all to rise in our being. Okay? That just, if you would, just close your eyes and feel yourself connecting with your heart, connecting with your feet to the earth, connecting with your breath, letting your hands go out and bringing in some chi. And then if you would, just let your hands go up. Let them rise up and reach for the sky. And know that there's so much love and energy for us. We just have to open to it and let it come to us and through us. And in doing so, beautiful things will happen. Thank you so much. till we meet again. We'll be doing these things all week, so please jump in and out as you can. And Donnie and Jen, love you.
Love you too. Thank you so
So
much.
cool.
Wonderful.
All right. All the best.
One thing